Dr. Hoyt Chastain, a great preacher. You can hear him and watch him preach on the website, and eight 30-minute messages that he did in a debate against the Church of Christ. And he said, we were beginning to teach a class. He didn't want to offend anybody. You know, he said, I want to preach this revival in this church. And he said, the pastor got me to decide before I ever preached the first sermon. And he said, now, I want you to be careful with the congregation, because some of them drink a little bit. And some of them gamble a little bit. And so on and so forth. He said, so be very, very careful what you do, you know, what you say about this. You might offend them and they might not come back. So he got up there and he said, well, I don't want to offend the drunkards. I don't want to offend the gamblers and the card players and the crap shooters. But he said we're going to talk about baptism today, and we're going to get them Campbellites because they aren't there. There aren't any of them here. We're going to preach against Campbellism, you know, and baptism or regeneration. Well, today, the guy we're going to talk about is here. And that's Lucifer, Hallel, Satan. He's right here with us. Just in case you don't know it, he's in the classroom. Does that kind of make you feel kind of uneasy just a little bit? I know he's here because he's never been less than 5 feet behind me all my life. He's been right there. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the millennial career and the post-millennial career of Satan, or Lucifer. Now, he has many titles, doesn't he? Now, how many of you have got the Doctrines of the Bible booklets? Remember, I taught that a lot of times. If you kept that in your little folder when you take it, it would be good, because we refer to it all the time. And these are some of the titles of Satan, okay? It's going to give some of them today in the 20th chapter of the book of Revelation, but let's go look at some of the titles. He's called the Wicked One in Matthew 13, 19, and 38. He's called the God of this age in 2 Corinthians 4 and 4. He's called the Power of Darkness in Colossians 1 and 13. He's called the Prince of this world in John 12:31. He's called Nahash, the Satan, where? In the 3rd chapter of the book of Genesis. We meet him there. We don't meet Satan until we get into the 3rd chapter of the book of Genesis. We meet his actions in Genesis 1 and 2, don't we? Genesis 1 and 2, we find destruction, okay? And we find out what he had done. And that was his career in eternity past. Genesis 1 and 2 was a product of his career in eternity past. Okay? Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28 tells us about that. How many gardens of Eden were there in the Bible? How many? 2. One that God placed as a throne. Satan's throne was on the earth in the Garden of Eden that God planted in this earth. Okay? And that Garden of Eden was just paved with beautiful stones and rubies and gold and everything at that time. And of course, after the earth was destruction, all of those beautiful gems and things are just scattered helter-skelter all over the earth in different places. But that was really the throne room of Satan. And then the second the second Garden of Eden was when God placed Adam there, and that was his throne room. And from the Garden of Eden, Adam was supposed to do what? Guard and rule the whole universe and the earth. All right? Now, Satan is also called the prince of demons in Matthew 12:24. He's called the prince and the power of the air in Ephesians 2 and 2. All right? He's called the ruler of darkness in Ephesians 6 and 12. He's called the spirit that is energizing the children of disobedience, the spirit that is energizing the children of disobedience, and that's in Ephesians 2 and 2 also. Before we were pawns. We had no mercy under the rule of Satan. Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, tells us that. Let's go there and look at just for a moment. Ephesians 2nd chapter. Ephesians 2. Ephesians chapter 2. And look what it says here. And you being dead. You being dead, literally is what it says in Hebrew. I mean, not Hebrew, but in Greek here. And the ones being dead, immersed in the trespasses and the sins of you. You were immersed in them. You were dead. You were literally just floating in your sins and your disobedience. In which, then, at that period of time, you walked around according to the ruler of the age. When people think that they're doing their own thing in the world, you know, there's been songs about, I did my own thing and all this kind of stuff. They didn't do their own thing. They did Satan's bidding. Satan's bidding. All right? According to the ruler and the authority, that exousia. Remember what the word exousia means? Sharon, you remember that word? Exousia. That's a beautiful word in it. Brother Roger? Brother Roger, exousia. That means you're not limited by anything at all, exousia. Satan has very few limitations in the world today, doesn't he? How much destruction is he causing? Last Wednesday night I talked about the question of the ages. I talked about in the 12th chapter of the book of John. Why does God allow Satan all of this freedom today? Remember what I told you? Because God fights on equal grounds. This warfare between Satan and God is on equal grounds. It really is. God's not cheating. He's not cheating. He's given him all the leeway that he can have to show him and to show all the angels that God's going to win. In the end, God's going to win. God's going to bring all this world back under his authority. He's the authority of the air. It's eros. And the spirit that's energizing in the sons of disobedience, among whom also all of you had your conversation, your daily living, in times past in the lust of your flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, even as others. But God, who is rich in mercy, for his great love wherein he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses and sins, he has made us alive together with Christ Jesus. By grace ye are saved. Isn't that beautiful? By grace ye are saved. All right, he's called Hallel. Hallel in the Bible, which means a light carrier. The Latin word for that is Lucifer or Luke. I met Luke Neighbors the other night after the class. He came out there and talked to me for quite a while. He wanted to study some deep stuff. He said, I'm absolutely just hungry for something deep. I said, well, have at it. Just get into these classes and have at it. And I said, you know what your name means? He said, it says spokesman. I said, no, it means Lucifer. It comes from Lucifer. He said, what? I said, your name comes from Lucifer. It's Latin. But Lucifer means light carrier. The word Luke and Lucifer are the same name. It means Hallel in Hebrew, which means carrier of light. He's called a great deceiver. He's called a liar in John 8 and 44. He's called a murderer in John 8 and 44. He's called a slanderer and accuser in Revelation 12 and 10. He's called the father of sin. He's called an archangel over legions of demons and fallen spirits. He's called a perjurer. He's called an assassin. He's called Belial. He's called the fiery red dragon. He's called worthlessness in 2 Corinthians 6 and 15, the father of worthlessness. Now let's go on into the 20th chapter and look at this guy according to the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation. Any of you ever met Satan? I'm sure you have. You just don't know it. This is one, he's real. Satan is real. And I saw an angel coming down out from heaven, having the key of the bottomless of the abyss, or the bottomless pit. The word abyss means no bottom, literally. It means no bottom. Okay? No bottom. And a great chain in his hand. Now, scientifically today, this bottomless pit may be what we call a black hole in space. Okay? Now, what happens in black holes? How many of you know a little bit about this? Dr. John, you know anything about black holes? All right. Brother Bill?
Black holes?
Yeah, black holes.
They don't seem to have an end. They just go off to infinity from what they can tell. The scientists, there's nothing in them.
All right. Joanne, how about black holes? You know anything about black holes?
At school, we call them the kids' backpacks. They're black holes. Your homework goes in.
Never comes out. All right. All right. Black holes. Black holes. Black holes. Yes.
I heard that there's some people in the West or way up there found a black hole and they put their ear to it and heard lots of bad things, or moaning and groaning, and they thought it was hell.
Yeah. Well, the black holes, are this bottomless pit, is a place in hell. But it's out in outer space is where it is. In outer space, somewhere. Black holes suck in everything. No light can escape from it at all. It's total darkness in there. Remember, they had a movie. Disney made a movie called The Black Hole. Remember that one a long time ago? Yeah. It showed these evil people in this black hole, and they shot this spacecraft through and went all the way out the other side of a black hole. Well, there's a little bit of impossibility, because once something gets in a black hole, it cannot ever escape. It compresses time and space, and there is no time. There is nothing. Time does not exist in a black hole. It's one eternal time right there. Does this sound like hell? All right, now that's a real thing. This scientifically, they know about this. How many dimensions are there? 10 dimensions. 12. There's 10 dimensions that they know about. 10 dimensions that they know about. We live in a three-dimensional world, okay? We live in a three-dimensional world. We understand three dimensions, but the other ones exist. It doesn't mean that we don't know about them, but this black hole is another dimension. In that dimension is where God has kept very powerful, very disobedient, and dangerous beings for a long time. A long time. During the tribulation period, right here, during the second half of this tribulation period, for 3.5 years, the gates and the bars of the black hole, the abyss, is opened. And these terrible beings are turned loose on the earth for a short time. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Jehovah's Witnesses they want to live in the millennium. That's down on earth. They got to go through this to get there. I'm going to tell you, they got to go through here to get there. I don't want any of that either. Okay? Zola Levitt was a Christian Jew. And he spoke here. How many of you heard Zola Levitt when he spoke here at Valley Baptist? Anybody? Nobody? Nobody but me? Only one? All right. Zola Levitt, remember when he came here and spoke at Valley Baptist Church? He linked his website to ours because he liked our website. He was really teaching some good stuff, he said. Anyway, you used to be linked there all the time. Well, Zola Levitt came here and he said, I'm a Jew. And I try to reach other Jews for Christ. But he said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm no longer a Jew. I'm a Gentile. I'm in the Gentile church. He said, they can have their religion. They can keep it because they're going to get to keep it all the way over here in the tribulation period. I don't want any part of it. He said, I'm going to go up here with the rest of the saved people. they will have to deal with this situation right here on their own. I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key of the abyss and a great chain in his hand. The abyss, the bottomless pit. That's when God is going to turn loose out for that last 3.5 years of the tribulation period. He's going to turn all those demonic and fallen angels loose on the earth. And we see them as akritos, as it says, things that walk on tiptoes like locusts and eat and kill. They're trained killing animals. People have trained animals to kill people for a long, long time. Verse number 2, and he laid hold of the dragon. Here he's called the dragon, the drakon. That is the word that was in the book of Exodus, the same word, Leviathan. This is the Leviathan. Remember, the Leviathans that were out in the deep were believed to be Satan's Leviathans. And they were the ones that caused the storms at sea and all of this kind of stuff. We know from the book of Job that Satan causes many storms, doesn't he? You want to have all these hurricanes and tornadoes and everything that's going on the earth today? You know who's behind all that? It's not the Lord. It's Satan. Satan. The Leviathan that swallowed Jonah. I wish you could have, all of you could have been in the book of Jonah when I taught the book of Jonah from Hebrew on Sunday afternoon. That was dynamite, that book was. But the animal, the thing, the fish that swallowed Jonah could have been God's Leviathan. And he took him and spit him out on the shores of Nineveh. That was a long trip, too. A long trip, now that you realize that. Look at a global view of it. Now this angel out of heaven came down and laid hold of the old serpent. The serpent, the Nahash. And then it calls him, see the dragon? The dragon, that's Leviathan, that's Tanin in Hebrew. The book of Revelation is full of Hebraisms. If you don't know Hebrew, you won't know this book. That's all I can tell you.
Jim, where are you at?
20 and 2. Revelation 20 and 2. Revelation 22. And he laid hold of the dragon, the drakon, the Leviathan, the Tanin. And the serpent. That word serpent in Hebrew is what, Brother Roger? Nahash. Nahash. Say Nahash. He's got a hiss to it. Have you ever heard a snake blow or hiss? Shh. Yeah. That's it. The sound of a snake. Nahash. Who is the devil? Diabolos. What's diabolos? In Spanish, diabolos means what? Huh? That means destroyer. It comes from dia and balo. Dia means through, and balo means to throw through. That's like shooting the 44 caliber, 45 caliber into something. Went to a class the other night. We talked about demon powers. Demon powers. This guy was up there talking about self-defense with handguns and everything. And this officer tried to stop this guy. He had been robbing a store or whatever. And he ran down the road, and the guy had a lot of guns on him. And he chased him down the road, and the guy was going real fast, and he just finally pulled over real quick and got out and started shooting at the police officer. And he shot about 150 rounds at him altogether. The police officer finally shot through his own front windshield with a .45. He hit that guy 19 times with a .45 ACP. That's about a 230 grain bullet, and these were all hollow points, exploding bullets. He hit him 3 times in the head and hit him in every limb, both arms and legs, and shot him through the lungs and the heart. And the guy was still coming, still shooting. Demonic powers. That man was obsessed with killing. You know what gives people that power? That power's in drugs, and it's in alcohol. You know why people, when they get drunk or they get high on drugs, are so powerful? The satanic energy behind them, the energizing. That dynamis, that power. The devil. Here we have the word diablo, the destroyer. Satan. What does Satan mean? Satanos. All right. What is the word Satan? Satan. That means to stand against and to oppose. All right? And they bound him for 1,000 years. Now, all of the post, what we call, well, the pre-Adamic career of Satan is over here, okay? That's an eternity past. We know what he did. We know that someplace back there in eternity past, Satan rebelled. But also, in eternity past, Satan was an angel of light, wasn't he? He was created as a servant and someone that praised God. That was what he's created for. He was the most beautiful of all the angels, had a most beautiful voice. You know, when you see pictures of Satan, you know, this ugly, demonic-looking being, that's not him. He's an angel of light. He's beautiful. All right? Now, some of those things that followed him became very wicked and ugly looking, we find out in Revelation. But back there in eternity past, in his pre-space and time, pre-Adamic period, he did rebel somewhere. And then we find him in the Garden of Eden in the 3rd chapter, where he's dealing with man, trying to deceive the woman. All right? And he did. And the man willingly ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, God wasn't keeping him stupid. God was training him everything. Adam knew all kinds of stuff. He wasn't going to keep him stupid. He was training him himself. But the tree of knowledge and evil was God's tree. That tree was in the Garden of Eden, and he said, that's mine, don't touch it. Don't touch it. That's prohibited. That's mine. When Adam touched that tree or took anything from that tree, he became a thief and he became wicked. He became arum, it says in Hebrew. Wicked, a liar, a cheat, a thief, like his predecessor, Satan. And man at that time became related to Lucifer. Did you know that? He became related to him, because he became a murderer and a liar. The first murderer we find in the Bible is the one they thought was a Messiah, which is Cain. Okay? And he is the, what we call the father of false religion. Now here, in verse number 2, it says that the millennial career of Satan will be spent in the bottomless pit, Revelation 27 through 9. That's where he's going to spend his career. Now, I'm sure he's going to be busy there, but he won't have anything to do with anything on the earth. There will be no influence on the earth at all. But what germ, what infection will mankind carry into the millennial reign? What infection?
Sin.
Huh?
Sin.
The sin of Adam. The sin of Adam will still be present in the millennial reign. And the millennial reign, by the way, there's some people in the world that don't believe in the word millennium at all, or millennial reign, or whatever. It comes from Latin milli and annum, which means 1,000 years. Millennium is an English term that comes from Latin, which means 1,000 years, which we have right here. For a milli annum, 1,000 years. This is the 1,000-year reign on the earth of Christ. Ezekiel 36:25 through 38, we have the nation of Israel restored. Israel should have accepted her Messiah over there, but she rejected Messiah. She was dispersed, and then at the end of the tribulation, or at the end of the church age, Israel will be regathered. She will never be God's bride again, ever. Israel will never be God's bride. She is God divorced her. Do you realize that? God divorced Israel. She will never be His bride again. But she will, because of the promise of the patriarchs, the promise to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all of those, she will be the administrator of His kingdom on earth. That's what we call the throne of David. The throne of David will be fulfilled right here for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Now the tabernacle, if you look over there at the tabernacle, the picture of the tabernacle up here, the tabernacle was a nomadic meeting place of God and Israel. Okay? And that nomadic meeting place where God said, I want to be what? With my people. Okay? That primarily is a type of Christ. Everything in that is a type of Christ. Okay? Everything there is a type of Christ. The altar is a type of Christ's sacrifice. This baptism here, Christ was baptized. All right? In here, in this area right here is what we call the holy place. That holy place, that in there, we have the candlestick, we have the table of showbread, and we have the altar of incense. This is a type of the church age, the nomadic church in the church age. Of course, the Holy of Holies is a type of heaven itself. It's a perfect square, by the way. This is a square, a perfect cube. This is not. That's a rectangle. This is a cube. What else is a cube in the Bible? Sharon, you remember what the cube is? New Jerusalem is the perfect cube. Israel won't be in New Jerusalem. Israel will be down on the earth, fulfilling the Davidic kingdom, the promise of the Davidic kingdom for 1,000 years. Okay? Down on the earth. Terra firma. Down here on the earth. Physical. They'll be carrying out that. The Lord, with His bride, which Israel could have been, she was. He called her out to be His bride. But she became faithless. All right? She could have been up there with the Lord. The 1,000-year reign of Christ, one of the reasons, is to prove to mankind. Remember what old Flip Wilson used to say on TV all the time? Some of you aren't that old. The devil made me do it. That was his big story. The devil made me do it. The devil made me do it. Everything the devil made me do it. You know who makes us do things? Us'ns. We do. Our Adamic nature. Our sinful infection that we have in our body. That's what makes us do it. It's in our flesh. During this period of time, the devil won't be there. There will be no demons. Everything that exists with Satan is going to be in the pit, in jail. Now, the earth will be a lot nicer place at that period of time. I can guarantee you, it will be just like the Garden of Eden for 1,000 years. Except even in the Garden of Eden, did Satan have access to the Garden of Eden? In this Garden of Eden, he won't have any access. Look at that. And you know what people are going to do? They're still going to sin. Because that's what they want to do. In Hebrew, there are two modes called jussive and cohortive. What do those modes mean? Do you remember what those jussive and cohortive modes means? They're volative qualities of the affirmation of the verb. Now that may be big words. But what it means is that people want to do it. It's from inside. Okay? Mankind likes sin. It likes the taste. It likes the smell of sin. They love it. They like the excitement of it. And so they are going to try to do that for here during this period of time. There's going to be some capital punishment there. There's going to be some zapping people. For there, it seems like they're going to have 100 years to make up their mind whether they want to be saved or not. After that, they're cut off. 100 years. The age of accountability today is what? Anywhere from 6 to 12, 15 years old. And some people, of course, never can because they're not mentally capable of it. Okay? But they're going to have 100 years. 100 years. God is going to give Satan all the benefits. Even though he's not there, he's going to fight his war. He's going to fight his war even Stephen. I brought this out. Of course, my lessons, they flow together. Have you ever noticed that? The same illustrations I use for one, I use for the other because they're related. During the Civil War, the greatest general that ever lived in American history was Robert E. Lee. He was the head of West Point before the Civil War. He was a genius. He was a military genius. He was a strategical genius. He trained every person, every general in the Civil War was trained by Robert E. Lee. Did you know that? Every general was trained by him. And all the other generals in the Civil War were scared to death of him. General Robert E. Lee whooped the socks off of everybody, even when it was in their favor. Now, the rules of war is you don't kill women and children, you don't burn their food up, you don't starve them to death. Abraham Lincoln wanted to win that war. And Robert E. Lee was whipping the socks off of him. And he got William Tecumseh Sherman. And the President of the United States that was the general in the Civil War, what was his name? What? Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant. Now, he's a little bitty guy like this. Compared to Abraham Lincoln, these are all little guys. Abraham Lincoln's wife called Grant and Sherman hounds of hell. Sherman went through and killed and burned down every town, every city that he came to, completely all the way to the Gulf. It was nothing but burnt cities. Burned all of their food stuff, left women and children. He turned his soldiers loose on the women to rape and pillage. They could have never won the Civil War had they not cheated. At the end of that war, after these wicked people did what they did, that's what it was. Wickedness won that war. You just go study it. You'll study it as a strategical. They broke all the rules of war. Only one man kept them, and that's Robert E. Lee, because he was the general. He was the real general. When Grant met Lee, Grant was all bloodied up and smoked up and everything else. Lee was in his press suit, like a gentleman, walked in there and signed the treaty. And all the soldiers, north and south, took their hats off and put it over their heart in the presence of Lee, because they were all egg-sucking dogs. You know what that means? The dogs that go out there and slip into the hen house and eat the eggs. They'd done it wrongly. They won the war in the wrong way. When God fights this war in the millennium, at the end of the millennium, and even before in the world that we live in today, it's on equal grounds. It's even. Satan is loose for a while. He's going to prove to Satan and all of the fallen angels and all the demon spirits, you can't win. Go lay down and go to your file 13 forever and be happy with what you've done. Because I am the king of the universe. Simple as that. Number 3. And he threw him in the abyss and shut it and sealed it over him, so she does not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were completed. And after these things, he must be released for a short time. Why? To finish the war. The war is between the seed of man, the son of woman, that's the seed of God, and the seed of Antichrist, or the seed of Satan, which is the Antichrist. The two seeds will be at war at the end of this millennium one more time. All right? We'll have Satan out there, and we will have Jesus Christ. Let's go on and look a little bit more now. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given to them, and I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the cause of the testimony. What's the word souls there in Hebrew? What's the word souls in Hebrew? It's psyche in Greek. Psyche? Ever heard of your psyche? That's your thinking. Nephesh. Nephesh in Hebrew. All right? I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the cause of the testimony of Jesus. And Sharon, you prayed for those this morning. We got them. A whole lot more of them going to die because of the Word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or his image. This is during the tribulation period now. And had not received the mark upon their forehead and upon their hand, and they came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. All right. These people that died during the tribulation are going to be resurrected. Okay? These people died are going to be resurrected. And they're going to reign with Christ where? On the earth? No. Up there in heaven. They're going to rule and reign with Him for 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead did not come alive again until the 1,000 years were completed. This is the first resurrection. Now we have a resurrection right here at the end of the tribulation period. Okay. We had the first fruits of the resurrection over here, didn't we? Remember this one? What happened over here? Remember what happened over here? That's when Christ was resurrected. When Christ was resurrected, did other people get resurrected too? At least some of them, maybe all of them. We don't know. There are different theologians say, well, all of the people that lived before here, from Adam all the way to here, were resurrected, and some of them say just some of them. Okay? Now, however many of them, they went to be with God in heaven. Okay? Before that, they could not have access to heaven because the price, the penalty of sin was not paid for. And once Christ died on the cross and was raised again, the penalty was paid, and of course they could go to heaven. They can go to heaven today. When you die, your souls get to go to heaven. Your spirit gets to go to heaven and be with God. Before you couldn't. You went to paradise. All right? But now they get to go to heaven. We have the church age. At the end of the church age, we have a resurrection and a rapture of all those people that lived here. Then we have a tribulation period of 7 years. That 7-year tribulation period. A lot of people are going to die during that period of time for the testimony of Christ. Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. In the days of Noah, how many people got on the ark? 8. All right? How many people were on the outside of the ark? All the rest. The rest, the remaining ones. Now, according to Peter, some of those people got saved outside that ark. After the rapture, after the ark, when the ark rose in the waters and carried them off, there were people cleaning and scratching out there and could not get in, and they died because they believed all right, but they died. I think in the first 24 hours after the rapture, there's going to be the biggest revival on this earth ever happened. Like those people crawling and scratching, trying to get into the ark. They believe, please, Lord, let me come in. I believe now. I believe, but it's too late. The Lord said that they were disobedient in the days of Noah. And the Lord went down and preached to them in Sheol, or paradise. Said, I have overcome. And they believed, didn't they? All right? But they died. These people that we're talking about here are the ones that died during this tribulation period. All right? Now, everybody here is raptured and taken up to heaven again. They get to be in heaven. They're not the bride. They're not the bride, are they? The bride is the bride, isn't she? How many guests are at the wedding? Blessed is he that is invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. It didn't say to be the bride that gets to go to the marriage supper of the Lamb. See, that's different. I know many people teach that everybody that's saved is going to be in the bride, but that is not true. I believe the bride is made up of true New Testament churches with true baptism and people that are truly obedient to God. What you do in this life does matter eternally. It does matter. A lot of people say, well, all you got to do is be saved. Well, you're in the family of God when you're saved, all right. But you're sure not in the bride yet. The bride is a special person. There are many people back here in the Old Testament that are not in the bride. The bride is this period of time right here. And that period of time you get to live in. You get to live in this period of time where you can be in such a close relationship with God, the closest relationship that mankind has ever had. For how long? Forever. You're in a privileged period of time, people. We're in a privileged period of time. I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given to them, and I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus because of the Word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or his image. That's during the tribulation period. And I not received the mark upon their forehead and upon their hand, and they came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. Now to the rest of the dead. What are these? Who are these people? Who are the rest of these dead people? Cain. 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 Say Cain. Cain. How do you say it in Hebrew? Cain. Cain. Cain means gotten. When Cain was born, Eve says, I have gotten a man, even the Lord. I've gotten a Messiah. And he turned out to be a murderer. They saw all of their horrible sins come to fruition. The harvest was ripe. The harvest was reaped in Cain. They saw the other boy, Abel. Abel was never a threat to Cain at all. Did you know that? Cain was going to be the patriarch of the family. He was going to be the patriarch. He was going to be the spiritual leader of the family, but he chose to go the wrong way. Abel was not the spiritual leader of the family, even though he was doing the right thing. He was doing the right thing. Abel was never going to be the patriarch. Did you know that? Abel was never going to be the head of the family. And Cain killed Abel. Abel means what? Vapor or brief, because his life would be brief. Who replaced Cain? Zeth, which means replaced or substitute. He replaced Cain, not Abel. Abel was never a threat to Cain, but Cain murdered him because he was jealous of him. Here we have true religion and we have false religion, and false religion always persecutes true religion. The rest of the dead did not come to life again until 1,000 years were completed, and this is the first resurrection. Number 6 says, Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over these the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God in Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years. All right. All of these here will be reigning with Christ, and down on the earth, Israel in the flesh. Now, who is going to populate the millennium? You know who's going to do that, young lady? Who's going to populate the millennium? Do you have any idea? Who's going to populate the millennium?
The Jews.
No. Now, in the millennium, let's go back to the millennium. How many Gentiles are going to be killed in the millennium? 5 out of every 6 people. How many Jews are going to be killed in the millennium? 2 out of every 3. So there's going to be 1/3 of the Jews left and 1/6 of the nations left. The 1/6 of the Gentile nations and 1/3 of the Jews are going to populate the world again. Those are the ones going to go into the millennium. Now you know that, don't you? All right. Who's going to populate the millennium? The 1/6 of the living Gentiles that are there and the 1/3 of the Jews. And I believe the 1/6 of the Gentiles are going to outnumber the Jews. But the Jews are going to teach them how to worship God on the earth. These are real living people. These are alive in their fleshly body. They're going to be having babies for 1,000 years. How many people... Nadine, you got married a few years ago, didn't you? Do you know that when you were born that you had the ability to have 1,000 children? A woman has the ability to have 1,000 children. Eve, I'm sure, had 1,000 children. This is a medical science now, okay? How long is the millennial reign? 1,000 years. How long did Eve live? probably close to 1,000 years, because Adam did. And that woman had children, and she had multiple births, twins and triplets. Abel and Cain were multiple births. They were twins. They were twins. Did you know any of this, Nadine? No. Okay. Are you learning something, Ricky? There's a lot of stuff here in there. 1,000 children. Now Eve didn't. When God created her, she wasn't going to have any pain when she had children. That was a curse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I don't know whether these women are going to have pain over here or not. Maybe. They're in human bodies. They're still Adamic. Okay. But the earth is no longer cursed. There's not going to be any stickers over here. No goat heads. No foxtails. No sandburrs. No goat heads. Nothing. No poison oak. No poison ivy. Isn't that nice? You could go out there and eat that stuff. The thorns, or the roses won't have thorns on them. That's part of the curse. All of these, well, there won't be any curses here. There will be no curse on earth. Nothing over here. This is going to be a virtual Garden of Eden like it was when Adam was in it. And man is still going to sin. Still going to sin. And they're going to have 1,000 children, the women are. Some of them. 1,000 children, Bill. Sometime in that 1,000 you will have a boy. If you had 1,000 children, probably you would at least got one boy out of 999, okay?
Not with mine.
All right. Let's go on. Verse number 7. And when the 1,000 years are completed, Satan will be released from the prison. From the prison. He will be released from the prison. And he will come out to deceive the nations, which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for war, and to number them like the sand of the seashore. There's going to be a lot of them. There are going to be a lot of people on the earth. And how do they get here again? From the 1/6 of the Gentile nations and 1/3 of the Jews, and there's going to be millions of them on the earth again. Just figure out, if a woman can have 100 children for 1,000 years, some of those people will probably be living that started the millennium. We're going to have people living as long as Noah did during this period of time. That's a lot of years. There's going to be some real sages right here. You know what a sage is? Huh? What's a sage? Huh? Brother Mike, what's a sage?
What?
What's a sage? What is a sage? Huh? What is a sage? A what? It means, sage means a very intellectual. They usually are the ones that are old, that they're the masters, like Socrates, like Plato, all right, like Jesus, like Abraham. How would you like to sit at Abraham's feet and see all of and him tell you the stories of everything that he's seen? How about Noah? How would you like to sit at Noah's feet? You're going to meet him over there. He's going to be up here with us in heaven, you know.
Why are they called sage?
Sage, they're called, that's because they are professors, master professors. These are the people, it's a term, because they are seasoned with time.
Elderly?
Huh? They're elderly, but they're masters. Okay? Sages.
Like a soothsayer?
What?
Like a soothsayer?
No, not like that. The sage is somebody that's brilliant and has been a long time on the earth. And they have seen things. He's wise, a wise man, a sage and a wise man. Okay? Let's go on a little bit further. Let's try to finish this chapter real quick. And it will come out and deceive the nations of Gog and Magog. Who's that? All right, who's Gog and Magog? Russia. Moscow, Russia. All right? They're going to be playing over there. Still going to be in existence. These people are. These are pure Japhethites. Okay? And they came up from the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and beloved city, and fire came down from heaven and devoured them. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are also, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. This is olam. This is forever. Ace Tony on, Tony on. They're going to be there forever. That's the end of Satan. This is what we call his post-millennial career. His post-millennial career. Number 11. And I saw a great white throne of him who sat upon it, in whose presence earth and heaven fled away, and no place was found to them. And I saw the dead, the great and the small, standing before the throne. The books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged from the things which were written in the books according to their deeds. Now, what you do in this world only matters if you're lost. Pay attention. What you do in this world, how you live a good life, it does matter if you're lost. If you're a good lost man, it does matter. You get to go to hell. But it's a place more tolerable there than it is in other places. The only place where works matters at all as a lost man. People always try to pile up their works. Well, I'm going to have more good works than bad works, and God will let me into heaven. No. You get to go to hell. You get to go to hell with your good works. But it'll be a more tolerable place in hell than it will be for those that are wicked. Terribly wicked. But it's still hell. It's still that file 13. It's still, with all of those people, it's still a place of torments. But that's the only place where people's good works are going to matter. And the sea gave up the dead which were in them, death, and Hades gave up the dead which were in them, death and Hades. What is death? That's where you're separated from your body and your soul and your spirit are all put back together. They're resurrected. They're a triune resurrected people that are going to go to hell in their triune entities. They were judged, everyone according to their deeds. Death and hell were thrown into the lake of fire, and this is the second death, the lake of fire. This is eternal hellfire. This is where hell is done away with, by the way. This is where Hades ends, and hell and Hades, or the lake of fire begins. And if anyone's name was not written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. And we'll go into Revelation, the 21st chapter. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions today? Any questions? Erateo in Greek. Eteragato. Eteriagato in Latin. It means, do you have any questions? Yes.
Well, you were saying that, okay, not all who are saved are the bride of Christ.
No.
The bride of Christ is like the creme de la creme kind of?
It's like the cream of the crop.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. They are those that are faithful. What you do in this life doesn't matter. What you do after you're saved doesn't matter. Baptism matters. All of these things matter in life. Your service to God matters. It eternally matters. And it's very important what you do with your life. Salvation is a free gift of God. There's a lot of people saved in the world. I believe there's probably some saved Catholics, a few. If they believe what the Catholic Church says, they won't be. It's as simple as that. But there might be a few of them in there saved. There might be some Methodists saved. There might be, I'm sure there's a lot of Presbyterians saved. There's a lot of Lutherans saved, but maybe it's by mistake. It happened somehow other than what their doctrines are. Okay? All right. Anything else before I turn you loose? Brother Bill, you got it.
Okay.